Morning, everyone. So last class we completed about file management, how to create modules in Python, how to access user-defined modules, and we discussed some built-in modules which we are using commonly: random module, regular expression, math module, socket module, OS module. All these built-in modules also I have showed you how to use that one and which are the commonly used functions from that modules. Now we are going to learn about object-oriented programming here in Python. So first one point we have learned what are the main features of Python. So Python is an object-oriented language. So what do you mean by object-oriented? So it's a programming strategy with the concept of objects. Okay. So functions we learned, that is what? It's a block of statements used for a particular task. If you use only with functions, all the logics we are implementing with the function based means it is difficult to manage the data in a real world system. Okay. So in a real time system or in a real world, its main importance we have to given for the data. So if I use only functions, if you are writing the coding, everything or logics in a function based manner means it is difficult to implement the security for your real time data. So to implement that one or to manage your code more easily, we have to use the different programming strategy, that is what object oriented programming. Again, the other problem with function based programming is if a small change if you want to make with a single user, if a banking application we have, for that we have so many customers details are there and each customer wants to perform the banking transactions like withdrawal, deposit, all those transactions. So everything we created in a function based programming. So functions are created for each task. Customer details is one function, withdraw is another function, deposit another function, like that everything is a function based way we have created. So the problem is each customer have their own details. So customer one have their properties like what? Username, password, account number, and what all other details we are providing there in the bank. That is one particular data. Same type of data will be there for next customer also, but the value will be what? Different there. So each customer have their own particular data to be managed and they all want the same banking transactions. Okay. Now, if you are doing this kind of application using function based, only with function means there is a difficulty to manage this kind of coding. Why? Because if a customer wants to change his username or the password he is changing means the entire application we need to change it. All are connected together because all are in the basis of functions only. So instead of creating in that manner, we are writing only about what? Objects. Importance is given for the objects rather than the functions. Okay. So functions again we have to use to manage all the tasks properly or to write in a systemized manner. We are writing which one? Functions, but importance is not given for function. It is given for what? Objects. So what is object? How we are going to write this object properties? That way of programming is which one? Object oriented programming. Okay, so that one here we are going to learn. Already we learned in Python all the built-in things, whatever variable or whatever data is there, what is the type of the data, everything they have managed in the form of classes and objects only. So only if I write a equal to 100, the a in Python interpreter is considering as which one? As a object of which type? Int type of object. Okay, so same manner we can create user defined classes. Depends upon the logic which we are working in a real time situation, we can create user defined classes. So how to create that one? What are the features of object oriented programming? All those points now we are going to learn. Okay, so here this is an object oriented programming language. Everything here in Python is in object based only. So every object has their properties. So how we are writing the properties? Inside a class, we have to write the property. Okay. So what do you mean by a class? Class can be defined as collection of objects. It is a logical entity that has some specific attributes and methods. So inside a class, what we are going to create is object properties only will create. So what do you mean by an object? It is a real world entity which has state and behavior as the property. State is nothing but its physical appearance, and behavior is how it is behaving in a real time situation. Okay, so these are the main two features for an object. These features will create inside where? Inside the class. And class is like a blueprint for some collection of objects. The same thing, customer details means every customer the same details only. What is the type? Username will be there, password, then their all their details and all, address, all those things. But the value which we are storing for each data only what different, but all have the same properties, right? So that we are creating inside where? Inside the class, and whatever values we are storing for that one, that only differs. Okay, so this is what? Class and objects. Now, when we are writing any object-oriented programming, that language must follow some object-oriented rules, or which are the OOPS concepts here in Python. Not only in Python, any object-oriented language you are learning, if it is Java, C++, any R language or C#, anything you are learning, you have to follow these rules there. So what is encapsulation? What is abstraction? What is polymorphism? Like that, different concepts are there. That one we are going to learn. Okay, so first point is encapsulation. So it is code and data are wrapped together within a single unit, or it is binding of data and functions together. That concept is called as what? Encapsulation. So encapsulating all these things into a single unit. Okay, so you are hiding something into that single unit. So that is which one? Encapsulation rule. So advantage of encapsulation is information hiding. Okay, so it is what? One of the important rule here in object oriented programming is encapsulating or binding the code and data into a single unit. Okay, so it's nothing but class. Inside the class only we are creating what? Object properties. Object properties is what? State and behavior. State is nothing but in a real-time situation it is data, and behavior is the function or the coding part which we are writing for that particular object. Okay, so class we are using to implement which rule? Encapsulation rule here in object-oriented programming. So we'll see in examples how we are going to do these things. Okay, now the point is important what? Encapsulation is wrapping up of object, state and behavior into a single unit, or we can tell code and data are wrapped together within a single unit. That is nothing but the class. Advantage of encapsulation is information hiding. So in a real-time situation, which application you want to create, what all items you are writing for creating that application, which manner you are creating that one, how you implemented all the data, how the functions or the coding part you have done, everything is combined into or encapsulated into one single unit. That is what? Class. User will not be knowing anything about these classes and all. User will simply use the application, but as a programmer, how we are creating that application, that is important. Okay, so there we are hiding all this information, how you are creating the application, so that we can implement using which concept? Encapsulation concept. So the next rule is abstraction. So abstraction is used to hide internal details and showing only the functionality. So when we are using any application, we know how to use that. Functionality everyone knows, but how it is internally working, we don't know. This application of PowerPoint, if you take, here after typing all these logics and all, or after creating the slides, we know how to save this document or how to save this presentation. What we know, here we have a file menu, we have here save option, we can click on that, it will open the dialog box, select the location, give a proper name for your file, click on the save button. That functionalities everyone knows, but when I click on the button save, how internally it is working, that we don't know. So that concept is which one? Abstraction. So whenever you are creating any application, that also we should maintain there. What? We are hiding something and giving only what? Functionality. Another example, in a real-time situation, we all knows how to put status in our WhatsApp. Okay, so here, there we can implement what? Showing to all your contacts or only to some special persons we can show. So that functionality is again all the users knows, but how internally it is working, if I select only one particular contact, how this is working, that we don't know. So as a programmer, that we can hide it. Implementation is hidden, but functionality is given to the user. So to implement that one, we have the concept, which one? Abstraction. So it is giving only essential features to the user, hiding the implementation details, or we can tell giving only functionality to the user, hiding the implementation. Okay, so that concept is which one? Abstraction. Okay. Next concept is inheritance. By using the inheritance, we can create a class which uses all the properties and behavior of another class. So class is blueprint for some collection of objects. Okay, so those same properties is required by another object or another class values, then no need to write that coding part again and again. We can just inherit that properties. Okay, so that point is which one? Inheritance concept. So the new class is known as derived class or child class or subclass, and the one whose properties are acquired is known as base class or parent class or superclass. So here a parent-child relationship is there between the classes. Okay, so if a class you created with some set of properties, the same property is required by another class, means the second class is acquiring the properties from the first class. That concept is which one? Inheritance concept. What is the advantage of inheritance is reusability of the code. So once those properties is created, means whenever the next class or any other logics want the same properties, we can reuse that one using which concept? Inheritance concept. And what is advantage of abstraction is security for the data security, because how we implemented that is hidden. User just use that values only. In an ATM machine, how we are using that one? We'll insert the card, we'll provide our PIN number, it will show the options for you, which action we want, we will perform that one. But nobody can directly access the data and nobody can change it also in your ATM. Functionality only given there. So that is what security for the data there. Okay. Now, last concept is polymorphism. So it means many ways or many forms. So already we learned that one. The best example to show polymorphism is plus operator. If I use plus symbol with two numbers, integer value you can take 2 plus 3 if you write, it is performing what action? Addition of two values. The same plus symbol, if you use with two string values or you are using with the two list items, then what it is performing? It is combining two list items or it is combining the two string values. Okay, that is concatenation it is performing. So with the same symbol, different ways or different meaning we are implementing. That is which concept? Polymorphism concept. So that is poly is many, morphism is ways or forms. So many ways or many forms. So we can understand that one task can be performed in a different ways. Or the same symbol we can reuse in multiple ways. That is which concept? Polymorphism. So these are the four important rules of object-oriented programming: encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. So what is encapsulation? It is wrapping up of object state and behavior into a single unit. Okay. Then abstraction is giving only functionality to the user, hiding the internal details. Inheritance is one class properties is acquired by another class. And polymorphism is many ways or many forms. Okay, I hope everyone understood which are the object-oriented concepts. Now we are going to learn how to implement these concepts in Python. Okay, in Java, if it is implementing object-oriented programming, is same concepts. How we are implementing according to Java syntax. Only that is the differences. The concepts everywhere it is same only. If you are using Java also, C++ also, these concepts is same. How the syntax wise, how we are writing this implementation, how these rules we are implementing, only that differs. Okay, so clear. So now we are going to learn how to create this classes, objects, because that is nothing but using these concepts in our program. Okay, so class is a collection of objects. So how to create a class in your program? We are using a keyword class. Okay, so first, how the function we created? The user defined functions in Python we created using which keyword? DEF keyword. Similar to that one, to create or to start using the function or the class in our program, we have to use which keyword there? Class keyword, we have to use it. So what is the syntax like this? First the keyword class, and you can provide one class name. You can choose any name because it is an identifier. How the function name we have taken, how the variable name, same manner, you can choose a variable name or a class name here, colon. Colon again represents what? There a body of class is there. That means inside the class, we have something to create. So we have a colon here, then we'll write the statements. Okay. Then here in Python, we have a self-reference variable. So self, we have to use that as a reference variable, which refers to the current class object. That in example, I'll show you how the self is working, or without self, what is the problem it is showing, that I'll show you. Okay. So that is always the first argument in the function definition. Now, how the states we are representing? Object consists of state and behavior. So a real-time example for object, we can take your pen as an example. So if a pen, if you take, means it's a state. That means its physical properties is what? Color, name, then shape, all comes under which one? State. Behavior, for what purpose we are using that one? We can use it for writing, we can draw something, correct? So all those things is what? It's behavior. So how I'm going to create these properties inside the class? Okay, if you take student as an example, real-time entity, right? Student is also a real-time entity. So we have to write what? Student properties is roll number, name, first name, last name, age, all those things comes under which one? State. And behavior is what? We can access those properties and we can ask the student marks. We are calculating the total, average we are calculating. Then we can print whether the student is passed or failed, depends upon some condition based things and all. So all these are what? Behavior of students. Okay, so this is commonly we are creating inside the function these properties. Then after when we create the class, the next step is creating an instance of a class. So what do you mean by instance of a class? That is nothing but object. Okay, object is known as instance of a class. Why it is called as instance means because a class is created, consists of some set of properties are there. From the class, what is the result we are getting? That means from the class, we are creating objects only, because that objects wants to use those properties which I created inside the class. So the result of a class creation is what? Object. So object is known as instance of a class. Okay. So the class needs to be instantiated if we want to use the class attributes in another class or in a method. A class can be instantiated by calling the class using the class name. So we have to define an object name equal to the class name. Inside the parenthesis, we can pass some arguments or something like that. Okay, this is the syntax here in Python, how to create an instance or an object of the particular class which we have created. Okay, so this many points is clear for everyone. We are going to see how we are implementing these things in our program. How to create class, how to use these properties inside the class. So open our shell, open a new file. So like how the functions and all we created before the starting of your main program, the class definition should be done. Okay, so class, any class name. So here I'm creating a class name is test colon. Now here it consists of some variables will be there. That is nothing but we call it as attributes, and we can create some functions inside the class that we also call it as what? Methods. So these terms and all we know. Method is nothing but what? Function only. We came to know that one because we used so many methods from the built-in classes. List also, dictionary also, like that. So many methods we have used it. So it is nothing but functions only. which we created inside a class. If the function is inside a class, then we call it as what? That is method. Any variable, if you create inside a class, then we call it as attributes, or we can tell it is instance variables, or we can tell another term that is data member. Okay, so all these terms we are using to refer the variable which we are creating inside the class. Okay, so now here I created a class test. Okay, here one variable we are using, the value is like this. The function is used there, def. Display is my function name, a user defined function, parenthesis, called. Now this is what type of function we are creating is anyway here empty bracket, so it is no argument, and I'm not returning any value, simply we are printing the value there. So now the X is called as what? Attribute of that class. So the attribute value I'm printing. X. Okay. So this much only our class creation. Now this class consists of a variable and a method. Okay, variable is nothing but the attribute, and the method is what? Display, which is a no argument, no return type method. Now, if I run this file, run and see. No output, because we have performed only the class creation. How to use this class, how to use these properties which I created inside the class, no statements is created in our program file. So we have not started the actual program. Okay, so only class if you are creating inside the class, when we run the file, it will not show you any output. The class to be used. How to use this class properties which I created there, that is only the point here we have told what? We have to create an instance of a class. So class needs to be instantiated if you want to use the class attributes in another class or in another method. That means if I want to use this property, we have to create object for the class. So what is the syntax of object creation? You can see here, object name equal to the class name, and this parenthesis we have to provide it there. So any object name we can define it. So one object is T1 equal to your class name is test, empty parenthesis. Okay. Now for this T1, if you want to access this method, that means you are calling the method display, or the behavior you are setting for which object? T1 object. So T1 dot, we can call the function display. That meaning that behavior or this function which I created inside the class test type of an object is created. So this T1 is using this display function. Okay. Now we will run. It is showing one error. According to me, we created one object T1, and T1 is using that property display which I created inside the test class, but again it is showing an error there. So what is the problem means it is not referred as a class function. So how to refer that as a class function? We have to use here a self reference. That point only here I have explained. Self is used as a reference variable which is refers to the current class object. So T1 is the test class object, and T1 wants to use that class behavior or the class function which I created. Then that function should be referred as what? The member of the class. Okay, that we are referring using which keyword? Self. So it is always the first argument in the function definition. Then only we can access it. So like this. Okay. Now that changes we have made. You see now what is the output? Again, it is showing an error because name X is not defined. We can't refer like that. Again, if it is an attribute value you want to refer, we have to mention that using again which reference? Self dot X, like that we have to define it. Then only now this is an attribute, and that attribute here I have used display method, which is also a member of the class test. And here also I have to mention that with which one? self.x, and here we created the object for the test class, and t1.display if I call, now it can refer both the values. Attribute also it can refer, this display method also t1 can refer here. You see now the output. If I use this self keyword, then that should be inside the method. Like this. That's what it is showing that error again. Okay. So attributes, if you are creating, then we have to create that one inside the method using the self reference. So now you see, it is showing the attribute value as what 100. So this self we are referring for the object. You can create only a class variable also, you can create like this. Now that T1 you can access in your main. T1 dot A. So now see, class variable we can create it without using which one? Self reference. If you mention their self keyword, that should be inside where? Inside a method like this, display only. So it is an attribute value. But we can create a normal variable also inside a class. Then it is called as what? Class variable. It is not any object values and all. But that class variable also you can refer it using which one? Object. Like in the main program where we created an object, there we can use like this. You have to use what? Your object name dot and that variable value we have to refer it. So this is also possible, and an attribute we have to create using which reference? Self reference. That should be inside a method only, always. Okay. So the differences is clear. Now for this class, any number of objects we can create it. T2 we can create, that is another object for the class, equal to again the same line, which one? Class name. Now T2 wants to use the same display function. Now what is output you see? For T2 also, what is attribute value it is showing? It is showing it as 200. Okay, because I have defined it as what? 200. Now you can change your program in a different way. To comment a single line, we have to use this hash symbol that we know. Now, this we are taking as a user input. So here one more method I'm creating, def read colon, and here we are writing self.x is equal to, you remember input function, input of enter the value, okay, that we can store in integer type also. Like this also we can accept it. So inside the prompt we can give the, inside the input we can give the prompt. So now this statement is not required here in display. It is doing only what action? Displaying the value. This line also now I'm commenting. Okay. First object is created T1, and for the T1 the value, attribute value to be accepted. So T1 dot, we are calling a method which one? Read from that function. And here read also we have to make it as what? A self reference. Then T1 dot display. Next object is created T2 test, that is a class name. Now T2 dot, again calling the which method only? Read method for the next object, and T2 dot display. So what is the meaning of these lines? Here this is a common things which I created. Every objects have an attribute value X and we are displaying that attribute value. So read is reading the value for attribute value for the each object, and here it is doing the displaying action. And we created objects here in the actual program, that is our main program. T1 is the first object. So T1 wants to access, or T1 wants to take the input for the attribute. We are calling which method for the T1? Read method. And T1 is displaying and showing its attribute value, means T1.display method is used. Next, another object for the same class, T2. Now T2 also wants to use the same property. So for the T2, we are calling which one? Read method, and T2.display is called there. So that is the changes we have made. Now you see what is the output here. So it is asking enter the value, because we called the read method. You can enter any value now. So for the first object, the attribute value it is showing as what? 2. Again asking enter the value, that is for the second object. Okay, now this is the value which I have given. Now this is the attribute value. Okay, so more professional way we have written, because one method inside the class test is created which is accessing only the value. Another method which is given as a displaying the value. Okay, clear for everyone? How to create class, how to define properties inside the class, how to create variables. Variables, it can be two types. One is what? Attribute type. So that we have to refer using which one? Self. And another one is a class variable, we can create it without using self also, we can refer it. Then how to access the class variable? Object creation is compulsory. Using the object only we can access it. And all those things, dot operator is used. Why I have not explained that dot operator is used means we all are familiar with that one, because already we have used that dot operator to access the class methods, to access any module function. We have already used which one? Dot operator, that is also called as member operator. So if you create a user defined class also, how to access the class properties? Again, dot operator we have to use it there. That no changes in that one. So this is clear. Any doubt? Simply one example I showed you how to create the class. Why the self reference is important. Without self reference we can't access the class properties. That means the object properties which I created inside the class. So that is also compulsory to use it. Okay. And whenever you are writing any attribute value, self reference we have to use it, and that always refer to use inside which one? Inside a method only we have to use. Simply we can't write inside a class. Okay. Another example for the class we will see. So here a class student. Okay. Now a method is creating. So what all student properties we can create it. So roll number, age, then name, then subject marks, all those things we can accept it here. So we can write in that manner. Self dot age equal to int of input. Enter your age. So that is the first attribute we created. Next one is roll number equal to, that is input function I'm creating, because I want to take it as a string type. Enter your roll number. Next one is self dot name equal to, that is also string type we want. So only input function. Enter your name. Now that is also over. Now here I'm taking M1, that is one subject marks. enter the first marks. So that I want to take it as a floating point value. So we are typecasting like this, float. Now, 2 more marks I want, 3 subject marks we are taking. So it is M1, M2 and M3. Like this. So second subject marks. And this is third one. So like this, we have created the student properties. Now, another method we are creating. So this is only doing what action? Storing all these properties for the each of student. So now DEF, result one function we are creating with the self-reference. Now here what we are doing is we are calculating the total. So total of the student marks like what? M1 plus M2 plus M3. And here average is calculating average equal to this total divided by 3. Okay. Now an if condition here we are giving, if the average is greater than or equal to 90, then here I'm printing grade A. So like this, we have to display the result. So else if the average is greater than or equal to greater than 75 and average is lesser than 90, like this two condition. If it is lesser than 90 and if it is greater than or equal to 75, then we have to display as what? B grade we have to display. So print grade B. Then again else if the average is greater than or equal to 50 and average is lesser than 70, 75, then we are printing what? Grade C. Now, other than this, any other values is there. If it is below 50 or something, anything is coming means we are printing what statement? Failed. Like this. Okay. And for checking this one, here I'm printing what is the roll number. Curly braces. Name. Curly braces. And the dot format of self dot roll number, comma self dot name. Then here again we have to refer it using self dot total, and here it is self dot average, because inside that method we have to use everything with self roll. comma self dot average, like this. Okay, we have defined in this manner. So class is completed, student class is created. Here we have a method get, which is accepting the student details. Another method where we are calculating the total of the student marks. Average is calculated, printing the result of the student like this. Okay, and here according to some conditions and all, we have printing what is the grade of the student, like grade A, B, C, only this much I have defined. And the last one is failed like this. Now here, this is a blueprint only we created. Now the next step is what? We can create object for this class. Now using the object, we are accessing these all properties which we created inside the student class. That means each student wants to use these properties. Okay, so now here, so here we created the student class. And here we have a get method, which is accepting all the student properties. Result method is created for calculation. And we are printing the result, that is grade of the students. Now, finally, what we have to do? Create object for the class. Okay. Now, class creation, we have done. Object creation is what? Object name and the class name, student. Now, S1 dot, calling which method first? Get. So it will accept the values for this student. Now S1 dot result. That is the method name where it will calculate the result of the student. Okay. For one student, this is the action. So student will run and see. So first method is working, get method, age value, okay, 21. Now one roll number, that is S1, like this one roll number, name, one name we have entered. Now first marks, it is decimal values we have given. And like this. Okay, here it is self dot m1 we have to refer because that is an attribute value, no? So only the error we got. Self dot m2, self dot m3. Here also it is self dot.
On screen is not shared, ma'am.
Okay, sorry. Now it is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
So here the mistake I did is here the marks I have not referred using the self reference. So only this error we got. Okay. Again we run and see now. Age is something like this. Same values. Okay, so it is printing like this. So according to the conditions which we have given, so it is showing what student is failed like that. It is showing the result for you. Clear? Because average is only that much. So it is below 50 anyway. So else part is working. There it is showing what is the result. Failed it is showing. So like this is one student details. Same manner you can create another object for the same class. S2 is created for the same class object. S2 also wants to use the same properties. So it is S2 dot get. That means that student details we are accepting there. So S2 dot get method and S2 dot result. So it is second student result is calculating like this. So this is what we have told. It's a blueprint we are creating because every students have the same features like this. For every students, this value to be accepted, and for everyone, this calculation also same thing. Only the values which we are giving for this attributes that only will change. So that is the point what this is a blueprint we are creating for collection of objects, and each objects want to use this properties means object is created using the dot operator calling this methods now. Okay, so function is used here, but importance is not given for the function. Importance is given for which one? Objects. So that is what object oriented programming. And in this program, we have implemented encapsulation. Okay, so encapsulation is binding or wrapping up of the attributes and method into a single unit. That is which one? The student class. So this single unit name is what? Student. Okay, so like this, you can represent any real-time situation. All our built-in files, they have already implemented in this manner only. List class they have created with those kind of properties only, how the list will work. And those methods which we learned there, sort method, reverse method, that is only created inside which class? List class. Tuple have a different class. And tuple properties is different because that should be immutable. And there it is like what? We don't have sort method, we don't have reverse there. We have only count index method only available. Okay, so like that, each classes have their own properties. And if I create that particular class object, that object is using those properties for its execution, or it is representing those properties. That is the concept of which one? Object-oriented programming. So it is easy for me now because already this blueprint is ready. Our job is only what? Just to create the objects and use these properties. Okay, so any number of times we can reuse these properties which I created inside the class student. Only our job is create the objects. That's it only. Okay, so I hope everyone understood how to create classes, how to create those methods inside the class, logic how to perform there, and finally create an instance of the class that is nothing but object for the class. Using the object, we can access these properties. Okay. Here one more thing. This is another class we have, employee class. This is also doing the same thing, but they are just accepting and printing the employee details. That much only here I'm doing. So employee ID and employee name. And we have a print details one function created. And there it is printing what is employee ID and what is the name using the self.eid and self.ename. Same manner here I created two objects, E1 and E2. So E1.accept method is calling E1.print details. So now you understood how it is working. For the E1, this values is accepting and displaying. First employee. Then for second employee, also using the same statements, but the value which we are entering, ID will be different, name is different. So this print details will be different for the second employee also. Clear? This is what, how we are going to create classes here in object-oriented programming. Okay. So you can create class like a product class we can create with asking with the product ID, product name, all those things also possible. In a real-time situation, we can create a class called the login class. We can create a registration class because that is only commonly we are seeing in a real-time situation. No, if a web page, if you open or a web application you are working, there we have a registration page. Either you will get a registration. Once if you registered, then the next time we are going for which one? Sign in option. So login page will be there or registration page will be there. So that and all we can create. So if we are using Python for this web application, then how to create that pages and all, logics how to write, again classes, objects we have to create. So those, how many users are coming, all users are what? Objects for that particular classes. Okay, so how many users are coming to login? Sign in option. So that is one object is for that class. And a new user is coming means that is also one object for which class? registration class. Like that, we have to create it. Okay. Now, another important concept here in object-oriented programming is about constructor. So what do you mean by a constructor is a special method inside the class, which is used to initialize the class members. That means object we are initializing using which type of method? Constructor method. So in other languages, object-oriented languages, which one C++ or Java, their constructors is there. But difference is their constructor is having the same name as its class. So if the class I created with a name student means the method also will be having what name? Student. But here in Python, constructor is having a different structure. Okay, it is not having the same name as class, but working and all similar to the other languages only, but name is different. We have mainly two types of constructors, parameterized constructor and non-parameterized constructor. And its definition is executed when we create the object of this class. So normal method, how we called it? We have to create object first. Using object and dot operator, we have to call the method for that each object. That means invoking the method. So those steps as a programmer, we have to write it there. But for a constructor, it is not required. The definition of the constructor method is invoked automatically when an object is created there. Okay. In Python, the method underscore init, double underscore is there, and the method name is init, again double underscore, the function bracket. That is a constructor name. Okay. So this method is called when the class is instantiated. That means when we create an object for that particular class, automatically constructor get invoked. Similar to the say other methods like a normal method and all, it accepts the self keyword as the first argument, which allows accessing the attributes or methods of the class. So we are going to see now how to create constructor inside our classes and how to initialize object and how the constructor get invoked automatically when an object is created. Okay. So in this program, you can create a constructor. So here is one example you can see. I created a class with what name? Demo construct. And here I have a function. So see, that means a method. DEF keyword is used, but the function name I used like this. So by seeing this only, your compiler or the interpreter can understand what that is a constructor method. Okay, and which is having arguments like this. So this is a parameterized constructor. And what it is doing, initializing our attributes with that arguments. So self.a that represents the attribute of the class demo construct that get initialized with this argument value x, and another attribute self.b that is initialized with this argument value y. And here I'm just displaying a message what constructor is invoked. A normal method is there. So normal method you can give any name. Okay, like how we used display, how I used the result, how I get, then print details, like that. Any name we can give depends upon the logic which we are working. But constructor means always what name we should give, double underscore init and a double underscore. That is the syntax. Okay, here what we are doing is printing the attributes A and B. And two objects is created for this class demo construct. So OB is the first object. So while creating this OB, we are telling what values that OB object is taking as an attribute. So we have passed this arguments here in this brackets. So when this line is completed, your interpreter can understand what this is an object created for this particular class. And for this OB, what is the values to be passed? 100 and 300. So automatically this constructor method is invoked. And this x value is getting which number? 100, and y is getting copied with 300. So attributes of A and B for which object OB get initialized with 100 and 300. If I use OB.display, it will display with 100 and 300 only. Okay. Now here OB1, another object for the same class. Now OB1 wants to use different values, so that we have passed like this again. Now for this OB1 also, same constructor method is invoking. Okay. Now X is getting what value? 2. Y is getting now a different value 9. Now with that values, this A and B attributes is initialized. If you use OB1.display, that it will display with new values which got initialized there. So what is the difference you can make out? Init method, I have not called using dot operator. Separately, we have not called the method there. It's not required. That point only we have told what? Whenever an object is created for that particular class, constructor function get invoked automatically and it initializes the values for that object. That is the task which we have given for which method? Constructor method. So only told it is a special method inside the class. Okay. And always that is referred with what name? Double underscore init and double underscore. That name we should follow like that only. And what is the difference between a normal method and a constructor method means constructor no need to invoke it explicitly because we no need to write a statement to call that one. But for a normal method, we have to call using an object and a dot operator. And when the constructor is invoked, whenever an object is created, automatically constructor get invoked there. Output you can view. So I got this message constructor invoked 2 times because we have 2 objects is created. Same constructor method only invoking for these 2 objects. And display method when we call, each object is printing with the different values which we have passed here while creating the object. So separately each object you want to initialize with the different values, then we can use which type of constructor, parameterized constructor we can use. Okay, that is also called as argument type of constructor. Now we have one more type of constructor, that is what? Default constructor. That means every object you want to initialize with some default value, then we can use which one? Default constructor. See, this is the example for the default. I have created a class demo cons construct like that. There also I have a method, init method is created, but you see here we have only the self reference. No other arguments is there. So it is a default constructor that is also called as no argument constructor. Okay, what here we are doing? Self.a, one attribute is there. We have initialized that with which value? 20. So every object while creating only, you want to initialize with a default value, something like this. Then we can create what? Constructor inside the class? Default constructor. But every object while creating time only, you want to initialize with different types of values, attribute value. Then we are using which type of constructor? Parameterized constructor. That is the differences. Otherwise, both is doing what? Initializing the object. And whenever an object is created, automatically constructor get invoked. Now for this example, what is output you see? Again, we got 2 times the message, this default constructor invoked because 2 objects is created, OB and OB1. And both objects now initialized with what value? 20. Okay. So clear? Any doubt? This is about the constructors here in Python. So the name you should remember, that is with underscore and init, then again underscore symbol. That is a constructor name which we have here. Okay. Now these are built-in class functions. So when I create a class, whenever you create a class, this class can define this built-in functions. So to create some attribute value or to assign attribute some set of values or to delete an attribute, or we can check whether this attribute belongs to that particular class or not. All these actions we can perform using which one? This built-in class functions. So get attr1 function is there. We can use it to access the attribute of the object, and set attr1 function that is used to set a particular value to a specific attribute of an object, and delete del attribute attr function, and has attr means checking only returns true if the object contains some specific attribute. Okay, so these all are built-in class functions available here in Python. Okay, so for this one example, I'll show you. Say a class only created, class demo colon, and inside this one keyword is used what pass. So right now this class demo I have not defined with any methods. Okay, no definition for the class, but this prototype I want, which one? Class, and that class name I want to use there. So in that time, how to create an empty class? So we have to use the same syntax, class keyword, class name, colon. But here inside the class, what we are writing? A keyword pass. So pass indicates that is an empty thing. But you can remove the pass and you can redefine that one. Whenever it is required, we can give the definition later. That is the concept. So right now I want to just use the class name only. I don't want to give any definition for my class. Then you can refer the class definition using which keyword? Pass keyword. Okay. So any empty block or any empty function, class, empty loop, anything you want to create means inside that one will refer that using which keyword? Pass keyword. Okay, so what is advantage is later in a future things and all, if you want to use this class with some kind of definitions like a method you want to add it, or some calculation you have to implement inside the method, so you can remove the pass keyword and you can write the definitions. That is advantage. Now only this much we have created. So class is there, so I can create an object reference for that class. So d equal to demo we created. Now attributes for this object we can create by using which one? Set attr function is there. For which object we are creating? D is the object. What is the attribute name? A. And what is the value we are assigning here? That is a syntax here it is telling. Next, one more time we used to set attr for the same object D. Now the attribute name is what? B, and its value is 30. Okay, like this two attributes is created for which object? D. To display that value, we have accessing the attribute value, we have which one? Get attr function is there. So what is the syntax you see? To display the attribute value A for the object D, we are using get attr, object name is D, comma, which attribute name? A. So what output I'll get now? 20 is the output we'll get. And the second attribute value we are displaying for which object again? D. Attribute name is what? B. And here we are checking whether this object D is having an attribute name A. If A is available for D means this has attr, it shows you true value. So that we can display it there. Now deleting the A attribute for the object D using which function? Del attr. And again I'm printing and showing whether this is having an attribute value A or not. Okay, so run and see now what is the output for this.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Ah.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you. I would like to take the attendance right now only because some of the students have interviews.
Okay.
They want to attend.
Okay.
Just give me 5 minutes, ma'am. I'll finish the attendance soon.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah. Third semester, quickly give me the attendance. Akshita, please respond soon. Akshita, Arpita, Bhavana, Bhavashri.
Present, ma'am.
Bhumika.
Ma'am, Puneet present, ma'am.
Puneet, you can message in the chat window. Don't disturb the class. Class is going on. Those who are present, you can just message in the chat window. Thank you.
So here we have used this built-in functions set attr and get attr, has attr, del attr. These all are class attribute function, built-in functions available here in Python. So this example it is showing how this object is created and how we created this A, B attribute names with these values. Accessing that A and B attribute for the object D using get attr and just checking, or we wanted true or false statement for this attribute value. We are using has attr, and here del means deleting that attribute. So here we created using set attr, deletion we can do, and again I'm checking whether it is available or not, like that. So you can see what is output we are getting here. So for this, first values is displaying. For the object D, the attribute A is having what value 20, and the second one it is showing what 30. And first time when I used has attr, it is showing what value true, because that was available there A for which object D. We deleted that A. Next again, if you do the same action has attr, this time it is showing as what false. Okay. So this is the usage and how to use this built-in functions for the class. And I hope everyone understood about the pass keyword. If you want to create an empty class, then we can create using which keyword pass. So inside the class definition, we can create which, or we can use which keyword there, pass keyword we can use. So advantage is later when in future, if you want to do any definition, like adding any methods or to the class, then you can remove this pass keyword and you can add the methods there. Okay, so that is advantage. So that is this program, it is showing here built-in functions available here in Python for the classes. Okay, so we learned about constructors. That is a what special method which is used to give the object initialization. Whenever an object is created, automatically that get invoked, not like the normal method. Normal methods we have to invoke using object name and the dot operator. And what is the constructor name here in Python? That is having double underscore init and double underscore, that we have to use it there. And here, what is the usages is two ways I can create the constructor. One as a parameterized one, other one is a non-parameterized. So inside a parameterized, that means while creating the object, each object you want to initialize with separate values, then we can use which constructor parameterized. Or else every object for the same class to be initialized with the same values means, then we can use for which one, default or non-parameterized constructor. Okay, so those points all are important in object-oriented programming. Now, if you want to declare any attribute or any method as private members, so what do you mean by private? Now everything it is accessible by everyone. That means everyone can use it. Okay, the variable also everyone can use it, and the method also which I created inside the class is accessible for everyone. Functionality everyone can use it. But some class properties which I creating there, you want to restrict the accessibility. So how we can restrict it? We can make it as private. So how to make it as private means use double underscore symbol as a prefix. So while creating the display here, if I use here it as student, I have created in that manner. So see, now what it is showing is we got an error. Previously we executed that one. So now it is showing object has no attribute get. Because if I make it as a private, I used their double underscore symbol. If I make it as private, its accessibility is within the class only. Within student, I can call it. But you are trying to call that one inside where outside the class here. In the main program, we have access to that the get method. So only we are getting that error there. If suppose this I have made like this, and inside the result, we are trying to call the get. So first time it is working. Enter your age because we have called there. So first, for the first student, it is showing grade B. But you see, next student, it is showing what? That student has not that attribute of get. Okay, because I called there that one directly here in this main program. So we don't have that get method there. It is showing like that manner, but it is not executing this result also because interpretation. No, this line, it is giving an error. So it stopped that conversion there only. We have to correct this line, then only it will go for this second line. See, if suppose I have commented this one, now it will work. So now we have so many values. So see, now it is showing like this. Again, it is repeating what? Age value, it is asking. Roll number, something. Then some name. So showing the result. So that is the usage. If I want to restrict this one, inside this class only, it's accessibility like that. If anything you want to define it, then we can use which one? Double underscore, you have to make it as a prefix. Okay, this method is now private. So the get I can access only inside which class? Student class. So only I called that function inside which method? Result method. So that it was possible because result anyway, it is inside the student. So inside that one, I can use it. But when we try to use it here outside like this, there it was showing an error problem because of private property. That is accessibility is within the class only. Outside the class, it is not able to access that one. Okay, that is a problem there. So that restriction we can do using this double underscore symbol here in Python. If you think, if you have learned other languages like C++ or Java, there it is like what? We have keywords there. Private keyword is available. Same action we can do using the keyword there, private. But here we don't have private keyword. That same action, restriction, we can do using which one? Double underscore symbol. And we will give that as a prefix to the variable names. That means your attributes or any methods, we can make it as private. Okay. So I hope everyone understood this thing. Now we are learning how to give inheritance. So inheritance, it provides you code reusability to the program because we can use an existing class to create a new class instead of creating it from the scratch. So already some properties is created. You don't want to define that one again and again. We just tell that is inheriting or it is using the same properties of the old class. Okay, so that is which property? Inheritance property in OOPS, object-oriented programming. What is the syntax is, while creating a new class, we have to tell this class wants to use which class properties. So that is the syntax here we have written class, derived class name, and inside the parenthesis we are telling that derived class is taking the properties of which class. That means the base class name we have to write. And what are the extra features you want to define it for your derived class? That is only inside the body we will write it. Okay. Here in Python, it supports the 5 types of inheritance: single inheritance, multiple inheritance, multi-level, hierarchical, and hybrid. Okay. Single inheritance means single class, single parent class, and single child class. Okay. So only 2 classes. From the single class, 1 class is derived. That's it only, which representation? Single inheritance. And multiple inheritance means more than 1 parent class, single child class. Okay, that is which one? Multiple inheritance. And multi-level is like a child class is becoming the parent of another class. So first class is A. From A, you can think B is inherited, and from B, C is inherited like that. Okay, that is which concept? Multi-level inheritance. And hierarchical inheritance is single parent class, more than 1 child class. Okay, so only 1 parent class will be there. That same class is reused by many classes. So that is which concept? Hierarchical inheritance. And hybrid inheritance, that is a complex structure. So that we can create by combining any of these 4 types of inheritance. So you can combine single and multiple together, or else you can combine symbol multi-level together. Like that, any combination of these things, if you implement, that is which one? Hybrid structure. So that is a complex structure we have to tell. So in a real-time situation, we'll be using more which type only? Hybrid structure only we'll be using. To create hybrid structure, we should know which are the other types of inheritance. How single inheritance is working, how multiple, how multi-level, and how the hierarchical. Then if you thorough with these syntaxes, then you can create which one? Hybrid inheritance, you can create it. Okay. So we are going to see now which are the examples we can do with this single inheritance. Okay. First one is single inheritance. I'll show you. So like this simple example for understanding. Here a class vehicle I created. So behavior of the vehicle is what? Start, then stop, move. So like this, 3 methods I created inside this class. 3 properties, 3 important properties, right? Every vehicle has to be started, then it will stop, then movement also it is there. So like this, we have created this behavior. Now, our actual thing, we are going to create some implementation for a car. So car is a type of vehicle, right? For car also, we have the same properties. So while creating this new class car, again, I need what features? These same features to be implemented in where inside this car also. But again and again, redefining these statements, it will take more time and it is very difficult to manage also. So what we can think? Already it is created inside which class? Vehicle. And we can tell car wants to use the same properties from this vehicle class. That means car is inherited from which class? Vehicle. So single parent and single child. So this is single inheritance implementation. Okay, so inside the parenthesis, we have mentioned what is the parent class name or the base class name. So by reading this only, interpreter can understand what? All these features from this vehicle class to be accessed for which one? Car. So no need to define these statements again and again inside the car class. Only what we have to focus? We have to focus what are the extra things we need to create inside the car class. Here I created a method extra and I'm telling what is the main other features of the car. It is a 4-wheeler like that. Here I'm printing. Okay. So like this, we can print an extra message. Now, always in inheritance, we will create the child object. Which is the child class here? Car is the child class, and we'll always create which object? Child object is creating in the inheritance. So using the child object, we can access both parent properties and the child properties. So C car we created. Now using C, calling which method first? Start. That is a method from which class? Vehicle class. So you have not created separate object for which class? Vehicle class. Using this child object only, we creating which one, or we are calling the start function. Okay, and move, extra, and stop. Which order you want to call the function, that is your wish. How you want to show the output to the user. So here I want to show like this. The car, it is started, then it started to move. Then we are telling what it is. It is a 4-wheeler. Then it has stopped like that. We want to show some implementation. So only the method I called in this particular order. And it is not compulsory to call in this order. It depends how you want to implement or how you want to show the output to the user. That's it. So see, I got the output like this. Okay. So just a simple example. Logic you don't think. The statements and all you can ignore it. We have to focus only what? How this class is created with this kind of features. And while creating the car, how we are reusing these properties from the vehicle class only by this line. Okay. And which class object is created here? Car class object is created. So using that one, how we are calling the methods from both parent class properties and from the child class. Okay. This is single inheritance. Next one is multiple inheritance. So again, a student class here I created. One method is there inside the student class, that is which one? Accept. So here it is accessing what is the ID of the student and 3 subject marks. Now another class is there, what? Sports class. There we are asking the sports marks. So final result of the student we want to calculate it. So it is not always according to the subject marks. No, if any extracurricular activities is there, that marks also we can add to the student. So that only here we are asked. So the student class is only for the main things, what ID and the subject marks it is asking. And another class sports is there, that it is asking user to give which one? Sports marks. And another class is created which one? Result. So result, if you want to calculate, we need which properties? This properties from the student class plus sports marks also we need it there. So result class is creating from 2 different classes, from the student class and from the sports class. So this is which one? Multiple inheritance. So this line indicates what? Result is inherited from student and sports. Okay. So more than one parent class, single child class, that is which one? Multiple inheritance. So it can be 3 classes, 3 parent class also we can create it. That only we told more than one parent class and single child class. Okay, final result is calculating with what? Total is calculated with A, B, C, that is your subject marks, plus SM that I have created, it is for sports marks. So all together only total is created. Then what is the total marks of the student and what is the ID of the student, that we are printing here using this total and ID. And created object for which class now? Result class, because that is your child class. And first we are calling which method? Accept. That is a method from which one? Student class. Another one, it is sports marks we are calling. That is a method from which class? Sports class. And here we are calling the final result method, that is from the result class. So is this clear for everyone? This representation is which one? Multiple inheritance. Again, output is nothing. It just to show you the ID value and the total marks according to the values which I have inputted there. ID is something like this. And the sports marks now it is asking. So I have given like this. So what is the total marks and what is the ID of the student, that it is displaying for you. Okay. So again, output only this much. Previous one also output only this much, but we have implemented that with object-oriented way of programming, and we used there which concept? Inheritance concept is used. So for a programmer, it is easy now to implement that one because reusability is available. Okay, we can reuse that one again and again. Okay. Again, the student class, we can reuse it. If you have any other concept to implement, we can reuse which one? Student class, we can reuse it. Sports also, if you want to implement anything extra, the same thing I can reuse there. So that is concept of inheritance. Okay. Now the next type of inheritance is multi-level inheritance. One minute.